Hello, guys, and welcome to a brand new episode of our brand new podcast, which is Champions of Wellness. Um, we kind of deviated from the Figuring Out Friday podcast because we wanted to try something new. So we've given the Figuring Out Friday platform to our other four friends, who are Michael, Prithvi, and Alex. So those guys are going to be running the Figuring Out Fridays from now on. You may see us pop in and out of there, maybe once or twice a month, just depending on the topic, if we can add to the conversation that they have going on there. But the reason we wanted to deviate a little bit away from the larger group is so we can kind of do a deeper dive into some of the issues or topics that we want to talk about. And we felt that the best way to go about that was to kind of have it a back and forth conversation between me and my brother. Hopefully in the future we can get some guests on this show. Hopefully professionals that are relevant to the topics that we are going to be discussing for that particular episode. But for now, it's just going to be a back and forth between me and my brother because, as you know, we are the children of Dr. Danny Coyne and Mino Patel, and they are the founders of Healing Your Way. So we've been kind of growing up in this holistic health background for quite a while. And we know most of the ins and outs as we have been brought up. And that is kind of the difference between where Joshan and I are at compared to the other four. And they might touch on topics that we discuss in this podcast, but in a more fun and relatable way. Whereas in this podcast, we're really going to discuss what our personal opinions are about these topics, especially because we've been either dealing with them or have a bit deeper knowledge on them to give you guys.
Yep. And we're going to be talking today about knowing your body, about your own self-awareness, and kind of all the factors that go into being an athlete or also just doing physical activity, things that you should be aware of, being aware of your own body and your own body mechanics and all the things that go into it, like your health issues, things like that are very important. So we want to make sure that you guys are not missing that every day.
Yeah. What we mean by knowing your body, the way we're kind of going to approach it in this episode is just by bringing awareness to your body, hence the name Knowing Your Body of this episode. Really, we want you guys to understand what is going on with yourself so that you can better approach daily activities. If you participate in sports, you can have a better understanding of how you can better prepare yourself to go about daily activities or sports, or you can also be now newly aware of what you need to do in preparation before engaging in any of those types of activities. So, and the reason why we thought that this was an important episode was because a lot of people go into things not out of in a negative way, but they want to go do things, but they're not aware enough about what is going on with themselves. So they don't really go about these activities in the best way possible that is suited for them. For example, one we can give is regarding joint laxity. Some people, what joint laxity is, it's kind of like the mobility of your joints, how immobile or hypermobile they can be. And for example, some people who have very high joint laxity are susceptible to things such as more injuries, more dislocations, more sprains, and things like that. And if you weren't aware of your own joint laxity, you wouldn't be able to know what sports may be more suitable for you or not suitable for you. For example, doing gymnastics. Actually, sorry, that's not the best example. Doing anything super high intensity on the joints. Of course, gymnastics is a little very intense on the joints, but you have to be sort of hypermobile or very mobile to be able to do that sport in the beginning. But just something, for example, like American Ninja Warrior, stuff like that. Like if you want to do something like that, but you really have a hard time with joint laxity and you have a high joint laxity, going about something like that could be um, pretty dangerous for you because the high impact of the swinging, jumping from bar to bar. That's why some people say not to go on monkey bars if you have very significant issues with joint laxity. And one of those issues is, for example, like Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is the degrees of it vary, but in the most extreme degree, some kids are not even able to go on the monkey bars without dislocating their shoulder, and they run into those type of problems. So just being aware can kind of give you a better way to go about things, especially regarding activity.
And if you have hypermobility, I think some things that you can do instead of doing those high intensity things like even just doing monkey bars can get you injured. So I think one sport is swimming. You can do swimming, and if you're trying to choose a sport when you're younger, it will have not as much stress on your joints, so you'll be able to perform that with your utmost skill. So kind of figuring out what you can do with your body and like figuring out the health issues is very important when it comes to that.
So do you want to like the one of the things I think people might misunderstand when we say this is kind of like putting a limit on yourself as far as what you can do. I think the way you should approach this is not to limit what you can do or achieve personally. You should always strive for the best, strive for greatness, as the title of this podcast is to be a champion. But becoming a champion is a lot more than just putting in the work every day for the specific skill that you want to achieve. You also have to take into account where you are at and be very body aware, because that can really set you up for success in the future, especially when different challenges come across your way. And knowing yourself is really going to help, especially when, of course, we go into more detail about some of the things or examples that we have here. But it's really going to help when you approach not just your life, but the activities that you really want to do. We're talking mostly physical activity. So whether it be exercise, sport, anything that you engage in that's a physical activity.
And there are also things that everybody has their own like attributes and abilities. Like I'm taller and skinnier than someone who's has a more thicker and more meso how do you say this?
Mesomorphic.
Yeah, mesomorphic build. Yeah, and I would be a more ectomorphic build, and somebody that's is a little bit thicker or more like on the heavier side will be an endomorphic build. So being aware of these things can really separate yourself from you can really separate yourself from other people if you play to your advantages.
Yeah, I agree. And like, there's a lot of discussion about body types, and when you classify them, the main three that you see is like Joshin just said. You have the ectomorph, which is kind of the lankier type. Then you have the ectomorph. Wait, did I just say that twice?
Yeah,
Ectomorph.
ectomorph.
No. Mesomorph is the second one. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like a person who is able to pack on a bit more muscle to their frame, and they're kind of like a stockier build. And then you have an endomorph, which may carry a bit more fat, but they are kind of like if you think of like a husky type of person, that is the build.
Mm-hmm. And like examples for you guys to know, like ectomorph would be somebody that's a long distance runner, somebody that's more of a sprinter since they have a heavier set build, they would be yeah, sprinter, but endomorph would be somebody like a wrestler or a football player.
Yeah, and all of these different body types actually suit that specific sport that where whichever body type is going into. And that's why, yeah, like Joshin said, you see the ectomorphs are typically runners. Mesomorphs are kind of, I would say, the most versatile out of the two because they are in that sort of middle ground. And then you have endomorphs that are really going to do a lot of the heavy type of sports, such as like a football lineman or a wrestler, like Joshin said. But what you can see at both end of the ranges, if we talk about joint laxity, a lot of the ectomorphs have a much looser or higher joint laxity compared to the endomorphs, and that is kind of significant because imagine if one of the ectomorphs was in the position of like a football lineman. They on top of the hypermobility would also struggle greatly with the high impact on the joints, and that really can do a lot and stress a lot on the body, which is why you see the typical build being endomorph. And that's why, yeah, I think just going about it, I think that you should look beyond those three classifications, and you should kind of look at different things. Like one of the things you can do is a joint laxity test, and this is the one of the most used tests is the Brayton test or the Brayton score, and it's a few different tests. One of them is like pulling your thumb all the way back to your forearm to see if it can touch.
Yeah,
and
you can do
there's
this like that.
Yeah, and there's one for like the fingers or the digits. There's one for the wrist. There's one for elbow extension to see how far your elbow can or the mobility of your elbow joint. There's one for your torso to see if you can put both palms on the ground when you are like bending over to touch your toes. And I think there's one more for the knee joint. And if you do that test, that could actually tell a lot for where you are maybe more susceptible to injury.
And also with these different builds, it's not like somebody can't that's an ectomorph can attain a build like a mesomorph, because like everything can be attained in the gym after hard work. So if you're trying to have a more heavier set build, you can have it, but you also have to be aware of if you're more hypermobile or not.
Yeah, definitely. And I think going back to what I said about like the classification, it's just like you said. Of course, you can do things to add to your benefit or add to the uniqueness of your body. You should always be playing into the traits or the strengths that you have been given, and then working around the weaknesses that you may have. And of course, every weakness is subjective, but I think just being aware of maybe the susceptibilities or weaknesses of your build, your body, and your frame can definitely help you go about things in a smarter way. Another example that I like to think of is when athletes are training and sometimes they're experiencing a lot of fatigue and lightheadedness, especially when doing sports that really are high intensity or sometimes all out maximal effort. Some of the predispositions that you can have that lead to these things include POTS, which I know Joshin has experience with POTS because he had it after his concussion when he was 9 years old. So, Joshin, can you tell them a little bit about your experience with POTS and what you had to do before like going into physical activity?
My experience with pots is kind of, if nobody ever had it, it's if when I feel really dehydrated or low energy, that's when it, especially when I see the difference. But if I when I stand up, just regularly standing up, I feel a little lightheaded and I see like it's kind of like blurry. And this can happen like at any time. It just depends on like how like hydrated or things like that, things that I missed during the day. So I think making sure you have the right electrolytes as well as the right nutrition to balance it out. Because when I had soccer games and things like that in high school, I wasn't really paying attention to my body when it came to having POTS. But after I started paying attention to my nutrition, drinking enough fluids as well as getting my electrolytes, I started I had less lightheadedness even during a game, and wouldn't get tired at all. So you kind of have to be aware. That's why we said be aware of your health issues, so that you can counteract them with whatever you need.
Yeah, and that also goes with saying try out everything first. Um, of course, you may already know a bit about yourself or your conditions based off of maybe what the doctor has told you, but I would say go and try everything because um, even if you don't have a specific label on you, as far as like an illness like POTS, but you do notice that, hey, when I go and lift weights to failure, I notice a lot of lightheadedness, and maybe throughout the week, I just feel super tired after maybe spending however many days in the gym, and I'm just not able to feel good. My brain gets a little foggy throughout the day after I push myself very hard, and I just don't, or I'm not able to find a good balance between training and my everyday. So I think listening to those cues are very important and very crucial because that's really gonna tell you what you need to do or what you need to change in order to better your approach.
And some people might not even know they have POTS. Like well, some of my friends, like they get lightheaded in the gym, or and once they're finished their set after they're done bench press, they feel really lightheaded. But that might be a sign that you have POTS, and you might not have been aware of it your whole life. But if you see a little sign of you having a drained body and feeling very fatigued, you should definitely check and go see a doctor to see what types of health issues you have.
And just to clear up what POTS actually stands for, it's POTS, and that stands for postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. And this pretty much explained is like a dysregulation of the autonomic nervous system. So you have actually different nervous systems that are acting or kind of turned on or turned off depending on the activity that you're doing. You have the parasympathetic nervous system, which is sort of your rest and digest nervous system, that kicks into play when you are asleep, when you are resting, and after you have ingested food and your body is in the sort of recovery state. The sympathetic nervous system, as most of you have probably heard of before, is the fight or flight. I think that's the most common one that people have heard before. And that is the one when you're doing any type of activity that is very engaging. You need a lot of focus. You need to be very alert. Or if there is a potential danger that your body has sensed, then it will kickstart that nervous system. And then you have the autonomic nervous system, which regulates all of the things that are done involuntarily. Involuntarily meaning regardless of you thinking about it or willing it. And a good example of something that's a part of the autonomic nervous system is your heartbeat. You're not physically controlling your heartbeat, but you can physically control your arm or your limb. The autonomic nervous system kind of controls all of those crucial components, especially in the organ systems that occur without us being conscious of it.
And even a more simple one like breathing. like you're talking to me right now and you're breathing, but by not even thinking about it. You don't even have to think about like, oh, I have to breathe. That's not something that's something that's involuntary. So um that's another example.
We have
And
we have a
and
few.
also from a couple comments from the chat. Yeah. Uh Limbo says striving for greatness. Yeah, we're both, everybody here is striving for greatness, and we'll try to take everybody there with us. And uh from Sandro Romanov. Oh wow, my two favorite members from Figuring Out Fridays are back at it again. Yeah, we'll be here every Monday, so you're not gonna miss out, and you're gonna see us every week. And then also, um, what is a recommendation for people who have a concussion? And we both have personally had several concussions.
Oh,
It
I had
was
one. I had one.
Mhm. Yeah, so for someone who's had an immediate concussion, like which has happened not too long ago, definitely the first thing you want to do is stay away from blue light and any sort of light that's kind of close to your face or things like that. That will kind of like that would be the first thing that you should do. But also definitely see a doctor after you got a concussion, and make sure you're not forgetting that, because a concussion is a really heavy injury to your head. And I think the one thing that really helped me was red light therapy.
Yeah, I think so too. I was a bit more fortunate than Joshin because I was able to act on it right away. For his case, and he can probably tell you a bit about it. He didn't get the proper treatment and also the proper diagnosis immediately. His
Yeah.
situation. Do you want to talk about a little bit?
Yeah, so my first concussion was, or one of the concussions I had, the major one, was when I was 9, and for a whole year, there was no treatment, no anything that had to do with uh, paying attention to my body, or like healing my concussion. And nobody knew anything about concussions at the time, so I was having headaches, I was very fatigued, and I didn't know all the health issues that I had attained over time. So definitely the right way to do it is how Sahan had a concussion, and he was able to get red light therapy right after. So making sure you're aware of things like this that happen is very important. And also people, for example, people that do like sports with like like boxing or things like that, you're getting repeated blows to the head, and even though you might not realize it, you're getting little concussions over and over again. And and that might be something that like all the top athletes I know use red light therapy to counteract it.
Yeah, it red light therapy has a lot of neurological benefits in restoring and repairing. Like the red light, especially if you're using the right wavelength, it can be very healing and very regenerative, which is very important when you have had significant trauma, especially in the form of a concussion. And it's really cool, and we're definitely going to get into this in later podcasts about how light therapy actually works, how sunlight therapy works, going out in the sun, doing sun gazing. That's something that we've been preaching through many episodes that we've been on here for. And kind of to give you like a little precursor or a little summary, it all has to do with mitochondrial health as well as the balance between light, water, and magnetism. And as you know, we are all beings that have all those three components within us, or we get them externally from us. Light, the main thing with that is that a lot of people nowadays, I think, are more susceptible to the many chronic illnesses or chronic diseases that we see today because of a lack of light exposure and because of a overstimulation of blue light. That's why you hear red light therapy instead of blue light therapy, because red light therapy is a very healing, a very regenerative wavelength that is also emitted by the sun at at certain times of the day. Red light or infrared is emitted much more, like in the very early hours of the day and in the very late hours of the day, and even at night. Infrared is still, like, even though the sun is not out, infrared light is still being emitted. And if you guys didn't know, infrared can actually penetrate through skin all the way to bone. And if you can have something like that penetrate all the way to your internals, then it's going to do a lot of healing and reach a lot of areas of the body.
And also, one thing that we do use at Healing Your Way is AccuLaser. So that's a red light laser, which you can use on certain pressure points on your body, which can actually directly target a certain issue that you're having. So if you are ever wanting to get red light therapy, being able to have the AccuLaser is a big tool for success.
Yeah. And just to, like, circle back a little bit, we first started talking about with, like, certain measures such as joint laxity, or any predispositions that you have, such as like dysautonomia, POTS, any other chronic or autonomic illnesses that you may have. But also, another thing to be very aware of is, like, your recovery, in not just being an athlete, but also even if you're doing exercise for fun. Every now and then you're gonna need a tune-up, or something to get you back and help release any tension patterns that have been building up maybe throughout the week, due to work, due to stress, due to anything. And also, what happens when we get too stressed and things maybe don't go our way. We have, like, something called fascia, which is like a connective tissue network all throughout our body, and that fascia can really be tightened up, or I'm not going to say damaged, but tightened up and not in the optimal state. So getting certain treatments, especially the ones that we have to offer at the Healing Your Way Clinic, are really important, because they can give you that reset that you need throughout the week, or throughout the month, depending on how frequent you need this type of work done. But it can really help in getting you right before you go back to whatever activity that you're going into.
And also, having everybody has I feel like, a different recovery. Like, I might not be able to do the same schedule as San has for his exercises as I do. I feel like over time you kind of test things out and realize what your body agrees with. And I think that being aware, and also kind of like paying attention to how your body feels. If I have a workout, and the next day I have another exercise plan, and say I have legs, and even though I didn't do legs the day before and my legs feel sore, I'm not going to do it, because that's what my body's telling me to do. My body's telling me to rest and relax.
Yeah, and that has to do with, of course, a number of factors. But I like to think there's, like, two types of fatigue. You have systemic fatigue, which is kind of you feeling tired, foggy, not able to maybe push through that extra lap or that extra rep. That is systemic fatigue, and that can actually build up with very high intensity workouts throughout the week. And if you do not allot proper time to recover, you're going to experience what Joshin just had. And that's why developing a split and a routine with your training or with your sport is super important, because then you have the proper time to recover. But another thing that goes into it is setting your environment up correctly, so that during the time that you are spending away from activity, you are actually recovering to the best of your ability, instead of putting yourself in an environment that is not very optimal for recovery.
And for example, like how I have my week set up, is Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I'm doing my MMA training, which is mainly kickboxing. But the other days is Tuesday, Thursday, and maybe a Saturday where I do lifting. A lot of people do lifting 6 days a week, but I personally can't do it because I have training those days. And my body doesn't, I notice that my body, even without the training, I notice that my body doesn't recover in time to be able to do, say I had chest day on Tuesday. If I was able to do workout one more day of the week, I feel like my chest is still sore. So I kind of found a way to set up my exercise plan for the whole week, and I'm sure San has as well.
Yeah, developing a good plan is going to be your really the dictator of how successful you are with anything you go into. And whenever I personally fall off with my plan, that's when I start to notice everything else falling apart as well. Um, I think having a schedule to things, of course, things are going to be erratic in life. Some things may happen that knock your schedule out of place, but I think building a schedule that may be routinely enough for you or easy enough to get back to or get back on track with is the key. And the way I've done it is kind of like just a feel out. I've experimented if I wanted to add in a new type of training or if I've had things going on. I've tried to schedule them out and block them out so that everything fits nicely and that I'm able to transition into the next thing without being overly stressed or being overworked or really not feeling my best. I think, and that's another thing. I think transitions but when I mean transitions, I mean like between activity to activity or yeah, thing you have to do to the next thing you have to do. Those are the most important because that transition kind of dictates like how well you're gonna do the next thing. Especially for me, like before I am going into like an intense training, I need to have like a little bit of a wind down or a wind up kind of period before I go into things. And if I don't give that sort of mental space to myself, then going into the next thing is not really good to me. And I know that about myself after doing sports and activities for a while. And if I never paid attention to that and I never was aware of that, then going into the next thing would, even though I would have had to do it anyway, it just wouldn't have been the best for me.
Mhm. And also, people are not. Some people don't be aware of that. You can't always be perfect every day. Like some weeks you might be. So one week you might be sick, and you might fall off schedule. Like one time during the summer, I got sick, and I felt like everything was all over the place because one, I felt very tired, and I also felt like I didn't have enough energy to get back into where I was before. But sometimes you just have to take a break and take a step back. And I think one way that I kind of got back into my usual schedule was paying attention to my nutrition. If once I was able to get more energy up by paying attention to that, I was able to start reintroducing certain exercises and activities later on. And also, even for example, today, like I had training today, and to be honest, it wasn't the best training I had because I felt a little more fatigued today due to lack of rest and recovery from yesterday. And my teacher even said, not every day is going to be 100% perfect. Some days you're going to be better than other days, so you can't let that put you down.
Yeah, definitely. And I think what else you can recognize when you're going about doing your activities is how much fatigue you're building up. And I think instead of, like we said, you should know your body, but also try to find solutions for the problems that are coming up. For example, I'll go back. I'll talk about something that I kind of have been experiencing recently. I think that I've hit kind of a plateau in both like how I feel energetically and then also with my lifts a bit. And that I think has a lot to do with stress with school. I've had a lot of exams back to back, and I've had a lot of things that I've been working on out inside and outside of school. And my main issue and why it all fell apart was because I didn't plan correctly. Um, I built up a lot of fatigue because I wasn't getting the best sleep. Um, I was definitely stressed out a bit. And then going into workouts, I wasn't able to feel 100%. Usually, I can push myself very hard, and I know what I feel like, and I know how strong I am when I do so. And it's also very easy to tell when I'm not at that state yet. And I think pushing against it has only sent me deep into or deeper into fatigue.
It's like downward spiral, kind of.
Yeah, it's a downward spiral, and more work does not fix it. That I think was a screaming out cue to me that I was definitely under recovered. And my mom also pointed out to me that, hey, this week you weren't really eating home cooked meals. Like I was eating food that even though it wasn't the most unhealthy, it was bought outside of home, or it was not like a home cooked meal like I've usually been eating throughout the summer. And this fall break that we had, I kind of switched back to making sure that every meal that I had was home cooked and made by myself and organic and healthy and everything like that. And now I'm noticing that I'm gaining back my strength slowly but surely. And I really needed this break and needed this time to kind of reset myself. And I'm still in the process of going about bringing myself to where I was before at 100% capacity. But I think just taking my time with it is kind of the key, because rushing back into things, even though I really want to do so, it's just not going to work for me.
Hmm. And even, for example, last week, it was midterm week, and I had like 4 exams throughout the whole week, and I really wanted to go to training. I had training 3 days last week, and I didn't go to any of them because I know my body, and I know, back to where the topic for today, I know my body, and I know that if I was to go to training, I would be mentally and physically drained to be able to study for my tests that are the main focus of the week. So consistency is, of course, very important, but you should also not overload yourself with too many activities. Consistency can kind of can have consistency, but you don't have to go 100% all of the time. Like some days you might just are there to like say if I go to training, I know I'm not going to be 100% there, but at least I went and I kind of worked through it. But sometimes you can't overwork yourself and pay attention to your whole schedule and everything that's going on.
Yeah, definitely. And if you want to think about it scientifically, there's a thing called hypercortisolism. And this is when your cortisol is not being regulated correctly, and you have an imbalance. So cortisol is supposed to spike in the morning, and that's your cortisol awakening response. And then it's supposed to taper down as the day ends, and then that's when melatonin production kicks in, and that's the hormone that helps you fall asleep. But when you have hypercortisolism, that's when your cortisol is at a high level throughout the entire day, and maybe edging into the hours that you are asleep. So when that happens, some of the ingredients that are used to dictate the regulation of your other hormone levels are now being used to supply cortisol, because your body is still in that sympathetic mode of fight or flight. and needing to make energy. Cortisol, the reason cortisol spikes is so that your body can catabolize its energy stores so that it can actually use energy. And what happens is ingredients like pregenolone can be stolen in order to make cortisol. And when too much pregenolone is stolen, then that takes away from other hormones like testosterone, DHEA, estrogen, and thyroid output, which all are very important, especially for males and females. And it can dictate not only your recovery but your energy levels as well. So those critical hormones are now being thrown out of whack because you have generated so much fatigue that your body is now in a state of hypercortisolism.
Mm-hmm. And definitely a way to counteract that as well is going to sleep at the right time and waking up at the right time. If once the light hours of the day are going down and you're kind of winding down later in the day, you want to stay away from blue light and make sure you're exposed to cold as well, so that you can spike your melatonin. And then in the morning, wake up when the sun's rising, so that you can spike your cortisol. And
Yeah,
what you gonna say?
I was gonna answer that Romanov's question about what's the secret behind consistency. I would say developing a good schedule and really putting yourself in a good environment. I would say environment is the secret behind the best consistency possible. Because if you are able to tailor your environment to suit your body's needs, your actual needs, not this artificially created environment that screens, blue lights, EMFs have really created for us. If you're able to create a very naturalistic environment for yourself, especially during something such as important such as sleep, then that's really gonna help set success for yourself.
And make
Um,
it easier for yourself too. Like don't be on your phone at 2 o'clock at night scrolling through TikTok the whole night, because the next day if you're gonna have training, you're not gonna have enough recovery and sleep. And yeah, I think like you said, having the right environment and making sure that you're done all the tasks that you need for before your training or things like that. And also the other question we had was, when I was younger, I exercised a lot and didn't know anything about getting any body work, and I'm suffering now with sciatica and back pain. Is this still fixable?
yeah,
I
it's definitely. I don't like to say the word fixable, but it can be addressed. Sciatica and back pain are some of the most common things that you will see as far as connective tissue and muscle issues with the body. And getting body work done like acupuncture, like Traeger, like massage, like or any type of fascial release can definitely help or ease some of the problems that you are experiencing, especially sciatica and back pain. And a lot of those things have arisen because you weren't aware of your body, or you didn't know your body well. You didn't understand that you needed that work done way back when. And then now you've built up tension patterns over the years that have now ultimately led to sciatica and back pain. And not to say that it's too late, but the damage, of course, has been done. And there are definitely solutions out there for you. A lot of the services that we have are very good options to deal with sciatica and back pain in a holistic manner. I would say acupuncture is definitely one of the best things that you can do. My father is one of the best in the business, and he has dealt with so many people that have had sciatica and back pain, and he's definitely made the difference with them.
And you can also, one other thing is Traeger. We do Traeger, and me and my brother both do Traeger, and it has definitely helped. And I've noticed that I've definitely have given a better feeling for people that have lower back pain, and are feeling tension in their back from sciatica. So get if you're ever having things like that, triggers are definitely a good tool too. And I want to give an example as well. I had a hip injury a couple of years ago, and even though it was a couple of years ago, it was giving me a lot of issues with my training because I wasn't able to kick with my right leg as well. And whenever I even tried to do it when I was doing my kickboxing, I would feel the tension and kind of like that twitching and pinching on my hip muscles. And I thought that the quick fix would be stretching and also stretching. And I feel like it was really tight. But only until recently I figured out that strengthening played a big part of my recovery. Like I started doing strengthening for my hip as well as for my glute muscles, and I've noticed a big difference when it comes to how my body responded to when I was going for the kick. I didn't feel that kind of like thought in the back of my head like, oh, it's gonna hurt. But when I went for it, I looked like I was way more flexible than before. So your muscles might even just be weak in your lower back, and you might need to do some exercises which will strengthen it over time and give your mind some ease because it might your mind might know it's weak, but over time if you keep on doing strengthening, but doesn't mean you can't be doing flexibility training as well. I think mixing it a bit of both is was very helpful for me. And actually, right now, um, it's like I started doing strengthening only 2 months ago, and I've noticed a big difference from the span of 2 years. I've improved drastically in this only span of 2 months.
Yeah, that's like a prime example if you want to go back or refer to body types. So Joshin said he is of the ectomorph body type, which is someone who is on the taller side and a little bit of the skinnier frame, and that is usually correlated with a higher joint laxity. So when you have a higher joint laxity, the things you want to do is to strengthen and stabilize the joints because you want them to be safe in those range of motions, and especially if you're in a range of motion that is experiencing high impact, such as in martial arts, because you're hitting either the bag or your training partner, or if you're in a fight, you're hitting them full blast. So you need that protection from your muscle strength when you are doing activities that range in a greater range of motion, because you without that strength your joints are not going to be as stable, especially if they can move as freely as someone with like a ectomorph type of build. So they should focus on the things like Joshin was saying: strengthening and stabilizing. The mesomorph, which is in the middle, can is kind of experience both ends of the spectrum, or problems from both ends of the spectrum, and they can kind of cater to whatever issue is going on with them. And then for the endomorph, they should focus on kind of doing activities that are more slow and controlled, and that kind of go through a greater range of motion, because when you are a sort of endomorph build, that you're rather limited in your range of motion, of course depending on the exact person, but generally that is what is thought of. And with that lessened range of motion, you might have to do a lot of compensation, especially when you're doing different activities or being in different positions where you're not able to access that range of motion. So just training that range of motion in a slow and controlled manner, and in those extended ranges of motion is very important.
And also for me, yeah, knowing that I was a ectomorph is would have been a big part of my recovery because I know I had to do more strengthening. Like I think paying attention to these things is a very crucial thing. So if you're dealing with this back pain, maybe trying out some strengthening for your back or doing something in the gym which targets your lower back muscles.
And we have another question from the chat from Peter. Is it possible to be resistant to melatonin? I work night shifts and get home by 1:30 a.m. and my body wants to sleep but refuses to. Yeah, you can definitely have a misregulation of melatonin. And that pretty much comes for exactly what you're talking about, working night shifts and getting home by 1:30 in the morning. Your body's circadian rhythm is definitely not matched with its environment, or your body's internal clock is not matched with the clock of your environment, which usually or is very dictated by your sunlight exposure and your sleep cycle. So if one of the two of those things are out of whack, then that can definitely lead to misregulation of melatonin. And that's why you're saying you feel this sort of resistance to it, because you might even be supplementing with melatonin and feel that it's not working for you as well. And that's why I also don't recommend supplementing melatonin, because then it's pretty much like a similar concept like testosterone. When people pin testosterone, their body produces less of it because it has enough of it in the system already from an external source. So when they stop pinning testosterone, they'll see that they're at a much lower level than they were at before naturally, because their body didn't need to make more of it because it was getting it externally. And that's why I don't recommend melatonin supplements, especially high dosage ones, because then your body can have that same exact response. But yeah, definitely
you're going to get desensitized to the melatonin over time if you keep taking it every day and rely on the melatonin that you're taking at night. And also, I think if you're having a late night shift, you might be exposed to more blue light as well, which is something that you should avoid later in the day.
Yeah, so it's kind of hard what to say for night shift workers as what they can do, but I would recommend if you are finding that you're have to be up those hours late in the day, try to get to sleep as early as possible. And when you wake up, try to wake up in the AM hours. Of course, aim for the recommended 8 hours of sleep, or 7 to 9 hours of sleep for the average adult. Try to aim for that amount of hours. Go ahead.
Say if he came home at 1:30, you have 30 minutes to shower, get ready for bed, and maybe wake up at 9 o'clock. That would be 7 hours of sleep. And also something that you can do to kind of let your body get down to the rest is maybe read a book. Do something that winds you down, but it's not spiking your cortisol at late night hours. Because if you also, one trick that I have done is counting down from 1,000, like or even 100. Like in my head I count down, but slowly I'm like getting more and more eased and relaxed, and before you know it, I'm asleep.
And diaphragmatic breathing can help. Do deep breaths can help trigger the parasympathetic nervous system to get you ready and more relaxed to go to sleep. So it's definitely a problem with melatonin, and the fact that you're getting home at 1:30 a.m. From work, your cortisol is definitely up, and you're not able to directly or fastly enact your parasympathetic nervous system, and that's why your body probably doesn't want to fall asleep right when you get home. So yeah, making sure that you, like, if you have a tight schedule like that, getting home at 1:30, like Joshin said, try to get to sleep at 2. Do whatever you can in those 30 minutes to wind down and get relaxed as possible. And then when you wake up in the morning, wake up at a reasonable time. Do not stay, or try not to stay up past the AM hours. Don't Uh,
Yeah,
I mean,
I feel like
sorry.
11 is a little too.
Yeah, when
11
it
might be
hits,
a little too much, but around 9 or 10, since you're going to sleep at maybe 2 o'clock, would be definitely the most ideal.
yeah, and when you wake up, make sure to get sun exposure directly into your eyelids. So the sun is going to be much more intense at the 9 o'clock point than of course at sunrise or sunrise exactly. But you want to at least get that UV exposure because that's what's going to set your melatonin rhythm for the rest of the day. And what the misconception people don't really understand is that the UV light in the morning is kind of um, the cue or the setup for when melatonin is going to be released in your body. So it spikes cortisol in the morning, but it also sets the show for when melatonin starts being produced and introduced into the system so that you can then fall asleep. So
Also,
yeah, getting the sun exposure is super important.
is Bong Peter, Peter. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Also, I want another comment from the chat is if I work out regularly, then have a break for a month due to illness or not being able to go get to the gym. Is it okay to just start where I left off, or do I need to start all over again? I personally think you don't need to start all over again, but you kind of have to find a way to reintroduce certain activities like say you worked out 3 days a week, maybe try one day a week and see where that takes you because your muscles will have that muscle memory of even though you maybe lost muscle mass over the time you're sick due to lack of nutrition and also lack of energy overall, your muscles will still have that muscle memory to so if you went to the gym for another 2 weeks, you might be already back to where you were before.
Yeah, um, and that's why making sure your environment is also super important um, as far as getting back to consistency. And yeah, the question that we addressed with melatonin also really shows why environment is super important for your recovery. And yeah, I think Joshin wrapped up or summed up that question really good about what to do when you have an illness or have an issue like that.
And another question, does age have a part to play in exercise I do? Is it okay for me being older to do the same exercises I didn't before?
Yeah, it definitely has a part to play because your body or the composition of your body is not the same as when you were than when you were younger. So that's gonna really affect what exercises that you can do because as age increases, then things like mobility can decrease, and if you're not having the proper maintenance, it may go down faster um, uh, than usual, or if you're not taking care of yourself. But definitely, you don't want to stress your nervous system too much when you're an older age. So doing things that are more gentle and easier on the body, that are still fun and very active, are super important.
Yeah, and I think especially if you're trying to do something for strengthening, I think doing things that are body weight would be a lot more effective than going right into heavy weights because your joints might at that age might not be able to take all the pressure that's going onto your joints. So if like before you were asking about the lower back, you might be able to just do some body weights air squats or some good mornings, which can help you kind of get back to where you were before.
Yeah. Let me see. I'm just looking at my notes to see if we have anything else we didn't cover.
And also like
Um,
with the build as well. I know like for example, in kickboxing, I'm a lot taller and skinnier than Sahan. So he might so for example, for in a sport, like I might have some advantages that he doesn't have, but since he's a lot heavier than me, he might use his speed and power to to kind of counteract what I have against him. So everybody has their own strengths and weaknesses. So you just gotta play to your strengths.
Yeah, play to your strengths and be aware of your weaknesses is what I would kind of recommend, because playing to your strengths is kind of what makes your style unique to you, and kind of approaching your weaknesses in a more defensive way, I think is better. Sometimes you can make your weaknesses your strengths, but if you have certain things that you like, and I'm kind of talking more of like a martial arts context, like if you know that you're really good at striking, and you know that's where your game plan, or um, um, where you're going to excel the most is, then you can hone up on your grappling in a defensive way. You can maximize your grappling skills so that you can make sure that you're super capable of getting back to your feet. Because
Yeah.
if you have an offensive grappler, they're gonna come straight for your legs. So then, a striker's usual weakness is their grappling. So then, if you work on your defensive work, then that's what's gonna help you play to your strengths pretty much. And that's the same way you should go about literally doing any other sport or any other physical activity. Play to your strengths. Sometimes you can make your weaknesses into your strong points, but sometimes all you need to do is just be aware of your weaknesses and keep them at a manageable rate.
Yeah, and one example that I have is like if you think of UFC, big UFC fighter right now, Alex Pereira. He's a very high level kickboxer, one of probably the best in the world right now, and he has a black belt as well in jujitsu, but he doesn't use his jujitsu because he places his strengths in kickboxing. So and same as Adesanya, he's a kickboxer, but he uses even though he has a purple belt or a brown belt in jujitsu, he uses it as a defensive tactic because he knows what he's better at.
Yeah, so that's where I think a lot of people should, or the type of approach a lot of people should take when they go into picking a sport. Play to your strengths, because I like to think like play to the gifts that God has already given you, instead of trying to fight who you are. Of course, maybe under exploring your weaknesses can kind of give you a block, and you may have not found out something about yourself that you wouldn't have before. So I would always say to still explore your weaknesses, but playing to your strengths and playing to what makes you unique is what's going to help you the most. And then that goes back to knowing your body and things that you need to do to prepare yourself for all types of scenarios. And Joshin, did you have anything else to say? I think I covered everything.
If anybody has any other questions in the chat, but I think we pretty much went over a lot of things today, a lot of great things.
Yeah, today I think we were a bit like all over the place, like just giving a general overview of knowing your body. We didn't go into too deep on like for specific circumstances, but if you guys have any podcast ideas or topics that you would like us to discuss, please let us know. And we will definitely be getting into a lot more specifics of different interventions you can do to help yourself. But this was just like a kind of like as a first episode, just a general of making that statement of knowing your body, because it's it's a thing that a lot of people don't do.
Mm-hmm. And thanks, Limbo. He said absolute banger.
Yeah,
And
appreciate it, Limbo.
every week we'll come up with absolute bangers. Continue on Monday at today we start at 8:30. We might start at 8 o'clock next week, but we'll go into more specifics into the upcoming weeks. Maybe a topic that everybody wants to look further into. We can go on into that.
Yep. And yeah, I don't think there's any more questions in the chat. Thank you guys for joining us on our first episode of Champions of Wellness, and we will see you guys next Monday.
See you guys.